Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation about your Kundalini awakening experience. My name is Chrism, and I've had the Kundalini awakened for about 27 years now, and eager to get into this conversation with you. Unlike normally, I usually just get a stream of consciousness, of Kundalini consciousness during these programs, and I'm streaming the information. Today, I got that. It wanted to talk with you about your Kundalini pilgrimage. And so I want to just dive right into this right now. You are all on a Kundalini pilgrimage. Even people who are not awakened with the Kundalini are inside of that level of refinement, that level of sleep that allows them to make the choices and decisions that will slowly but surely guarantee their evolution towards a Kundalini awakening. Then within that Kundalini awakening, there is a gradual evolution into levels of enlightenment. And this is what Kundalini is all about. Your Kundalini pilgrimage started with your incarnation into this life, that you would even hear of the word Kundalini, that you would know of the word Kundalini, that it would be something that you would indeed begin to develop an interest in. And with this incarnation into this Kundalini pilgrimage that you are currently on, would come the levels of karma that can be so difficult for people at times. This would come a level of karmic balancing and difficulty in the life, as well as some golden aspects of karma. Karma is not all bad. It's not all a bad thing for the incarnated individual. There are plenty of good karmas too, such as being born into a family or into a situation where your basic needs are met. It doesn't mean that you will have no problems. It just means that you may not have problems in those areas that perhaps others are having. And so as you come into this Kundalini pilgrimage, and you begin to experience the karmic aspects of the Kundalini, even before you know what is occurring to you. This pilgrimage is taking place within you, and you're being confronted with problems. You're being confronted with ideologies and choices and decisions that you need to make in order to see how you gravitate towards these choices and decisions that you make in your life that would carry you into a Kundalini activation and into an awakening from there. And so you're all on this Kundalini pilgrimage right now. And as you come into your awareness with the Kundalini, I should ask, are people able to hear me? Am I being heard? Can you go ahead and write in the chat room, Manisha or iMagicArt, if this is actually coming through to the chat room. And I don't want to talk to the air, which sometimes occurs with BlogTalk Radio. I close my eyes and it streams. Manisha says I'm sounding good. Okay, very good. I will continue. And so as you gently, slowly, but surely matriculate into Kundalini awareness, even having Kundalini awareness precedes an activation. As you come into this Kundalini awareness and you begin to explore this area for reasons that you may not even know. You may not even know why all of a sudden this word Kundalini comes into your life and you're going, well, what the heck is that? Is that the latest noodle? Is that the son of tortellini? Is Kundalini? That type of thing. I mean, and that's a little bit of a joke. But as you come into this experience and you come into this awareness, what is happening to you? How are you all of a sudden aware of this force of grace within you, this force of divine love, this divine union within you, even as it hasn't happened yet. And what I mean by divine love and divine union, I mean the full ascension of the soul, of the conscious and unconscious into a divine merging. And this is very different from the actual fact of life, where you come into being in a body that was formed by the sperm and the egg coming together, and the sacred male and the sacred female coming together and beginning that cellular division that eventually ends up as the baby, which eventually grows into that expression of humanity. I'm talking about something that comes after that. I'm talking about the divine union, the union with the flesh made divine, the word of the flesh made divine. This is the big deal that I'm talking about right here. And so it's very important for you to understand that. Yes, we have life, we have bodies, and yes, those are divine creations, but they're divine creations that allow us to mature and evolve behind a veil of forgetfulness, behind a veil of a severe reduction in our senses and in our understandings of the greater level of consciousness that exists around this little bubble of the world that we're involved in right now. And this little bubble of the world that allows us to basically respond within 5 or 6 senses. Certainly the 5 physical senses, but of course, we have to add intuition and the dream world and things like that. So we still have 5, 6, maybe even 7 senses for us to draw upon on this physical world. And so, yes, there will be those of you that are saying, oh, well, everybody's divine and we're all divine and this is all, and we're all one. And this is indeed true. Every atom of matter belongs to the Creator, belongs to the divine and majestic expression of itself that is allowed into this level of physical being. And so I just want to differentiate that from what I'm talking about here, which is very, very specific Kundalini enlightenment. Enlightenment upon that already physical being, that consciousness that inhabits that physical being. This is what I'm talking about here. Don't let yourself get sidetracked by, everything is divine, and because it is divine, but it's in the human expression. We are not allowed to really, really embrace our divinity without a Kundalini activation or awakening. Christ, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Allah, they all had Kundalini going. Okay. The saints, you look at the saints of Christianity, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Teresa of Avila, all of the saints, St. John of the Cross, St. Hildegard von Bingen, they all had Kundalini awakening going. And if you look at St. Hildegard von Bingen, and you look at her writing, she writes about Kundalini. She's having the Kundalini, a classic Kundalini awakening is what that woman had. Same with St. Teresa of Avila. St. Teresa of Avila would even go, her Kundalini activation into awakening went even further into very, very, very strong levels of phenomena such as levitation, such as starting fires around the chapels with just by the action of prayer. 2 nuns would typically have to sit on either side of her to hold her to the pew. Okay, so these people all had Kundalini activation going. The gods and the goddesses and the saints and the people that millions and millions and millions of humanity pray to and invoke and call upon and ask for guidance from, they all had the Kundalini, folks. And what is the Kundalini? Well, the Kundalini is the expression of the divine into and upon the physical consciousness and physical organism, i.e. the physical body. Very important for people to realize that, to understand that. And so this is the pilgrimage that you are on. You are on a very, very similar pilgrimage that St. Teresa of Avila was on, that St. Hildegard von Bingen, St. John of the Cross, St. Francis of Assisi, Buddha, Kuan Yin, Confucius. I mean, let's just go through them all, you know? This is the path that you're on. Those of you that are even listening to this show, listening to this program, you are on that path too. Whether or not you have a teacher, whether or not you're doing a Kundalini practice, the very fact that you're hearing this voice and the words this voice is creating is coming into your eardrum and is coming in to you audiologically, into your spinal cord, into your brain, all through your chakra system. You are on this pilgrimage as well, whether you realize it or not. It's important for you to understand this. So as you're on this pilgrimage and as you go through these very different levels of choice and these very different levels of experience upon this world and the balancing of karma and the intuitive guidance towards this thing that we're calling Kundalini, this hand of the divine inserting itself into your physical being and your consciousness and the five bodies of the human expression that you have. As we go into that matrix, you will begin to understand the history of your life in a very different way. The history of your life is the pilgrimage of your Kundalini, the pilgrimage of your consciousness and your physical being into the embrace of the divine, the actual divine. Very important for you to understand this. So as you go and you're walking on this pilgrimage with your eyes closed and your hands tied behind your back because you don't know what's going on, you wouldn't call it a pilgrimage because you're not even sure that you even believe that Kundalini is real, and more and more and more of your life begins to be directed towards an expression of the Kundalini. Gradually and surely you begin to reach out into the environment that you're in. Reach out into your social environment, and gradually but surely you begin to find that magic word, that golden ticket, which is the Kundalini, that word Kundalini, that Sanskrit word that is Kunalini, which means that which is coiled within, among many other meanings. There, you go on the web and you look at what Kundalini means, the word Kundalini, Kundalini, and you say, oh, it means a cave dancer. Oh, it means that which is coiled within. Oh, it means this, and that. It's hard to find legitimate resource about Kundalini now because so many people want to claim they have it so that they can feed that ego or feed that wallet or, feed whatever it is they're feeding by claiming that they have something that perhaps they do not quite have yet. So that makes discernment a crucial part of your pilgrimage. And that discernment of truth is what your choices and your decisions in your life as you're in the pre-activated mode are guiding you towards. The discernment of divine truth. Now here in the West, we're so technologically addicted that we don't really care about divinity. As long as that computer system works, as long as that gasoline engine works, as long as I'm able to feed that bank account, as long as I'm able to take whatever enjoyment my ego desires, well, that's good enough for many people in the West. But not everyone. There's still a large percentage of people in the West that are searching for that spiritual food. We have that word in the States here called soul food, and I think it tends more towards ethnicities rather than what it's truly saying. But I'm saying the search for your Kundalini expression is actually the soul food. that your spiritual equation is thriving upon. Very important for you to understand this. And so you have been walking and talking and choosing and deciding for a Kundalini experience by virtue of the path that you have been walking your entire life. You have been on this pilgrimage your entire life. And now that you've come to this program, you come into the information that is put out by Chrism or put out by other people that have the actual authentic expression flowing through them. As you come upon your pilgrimage and you look out over the trail that you have followed, it is you might have noticed the ascension, the ascending path, the ascending winding path. And you may have noticed that some of your friends are falling away from you. Some of your family members are falling away from you. Some of those who you may have once listened to and took their word or their advice as on this pilgrimage, it is the divine that begins to guide you. And we're still talking pre-activation, before any kind of Kundalini activation. The divine has already begun to take over and begun to influence your intuition, influence your choices, influence your dreams, influence that which you are understanding to be the truth that you must follow. Divinity is doing this now and has been doing this with you for a long time, long before you even would have admitted that there was a divine influence in your life at all. So now you're on this now you're on this pilgrimage. Maybe it feels the pilgrimage is going up a pyramid. Now you're on this pilgrimage, and some of you reach into an activation, and wham, you get hit by far more karma than you would have ever thought possible. And if you're even allowed to know that it's karma, often we're not even allowed to know it's karma because it's so fast, it's so furious, it's so intimate to our life that we're not allowed to know what it is. All we're knowing is that we're barraged with challenges that we never were before. And maybe we didn't have the idyllic childhood. Maybe we had, alcoholic parents or parents that were, thrusting us into a specific religion or a specific school of thought or whatever it may be. Maybe you had parents that were getting divorced all the time. Your mom was divorced, however many times. Your father's divorced however many times. And yet somehow, some way, the family is still being held together. The brothers and sisters are still living together, or not. Maybe that got all split up, and that was part of that karmic development too. And so as you come into your activation and you have had all of this in the history of your pilgrimage, and you come in and you begin to do the fragmentation, which we talked about before, but everything begins to go wrong for you. You may have been able to hold a job before, but no more. You may have been able to immerse yourself in school, but no more. You may have been able to talk with perfect strangers and hold yourself inside of a conversation, but no more. You may have been able to do many, many different things that fit into the Western lifestyle, but no more. Now you're fragging. Now everything is going wrong. Now your life is being shredded. Nothing is happening that is what you would want it to happen. Your friends, your family, your work associations, your money, your transportation, your clothing, your food, your health, everything is falling away. And not often in a very good way. This too is part of that pilgrimage. And as you suffer through that, and it's wave after wave after wave of difficult refinement, like an ocean. These fragmentations can be like oceans of disruption to what the ego consciousness would expect to be right, true, loving, happy, healthy, and appropriate. And you don't just get one fragmentation. You can have many, many, many fragmentations, as many as it takes to get you into a position where you can begin to acknowledge and accept the divine frequency within you. And much of the problem with this on this part of the pilgrimage is going to be due to ego infatuation, or the dependency upon your egoic self to make the appropriate decisions. So therefore, you're going to constantly be running away from your fear. You're going to be constantly looking at self-aggrandizement, because as everything falls away and your consciousness begins to shatter and your ego begins to stutter with fear, your self-integrity is going to fracture as well. And as that fractures, you're going to struggle. You're going to look for those pieces of that self-integrity. You're going to reach for everything you can reach for that allows you to feel like you're you, when in fact you are no longer yourself. This too is part of that pilgrimage. And that will happen over and over and over for as many times as it needs to happen. And still, you are walking that pilgrimage. And it's not always a straight and narrow path. It's not always a path that is easy and as flat as a plateau. You're going through areas of desert. And the desert isn't just a lack of moisture, it's a lack of love. It's a lack of self-love. It's a lack of love for your Kundalini. It's a lack of love for what is happening to you. You become very, very, very despondent in this part of the pilgrimage. You wonder, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? You scratch your head, and as you pull your hair out, as you continue to watch, the expectations of your life fall away on this pilgrimage. And yet still you must walk. You will not be allowed to accept the status quo, because you know that you are following a distant light. There is a distant pinpoint of light that you can see with your eyes closed. This pinpoint of light is drawing you further and further and further into the wilderness of your many fragmentations. And so still you must walk. And you may not realize it, but you're being nurtured as you go through these terrible, terrible times. You're being taken care of. You're able to find food. You're able to find water. You may not find a shower or a bath with all the lovely bath salts and bath oils that people just love to use. It may not be a hot bath or hot shower. Your divine self, the Kundalini within you that is drawing you further, may just clean you up itself in the middle of the night. A prana bath, a prana shower, the divine hand cleaning the heavenly child as that child goes through the growth pains and pangs and agony of this part of the pilgrimage. This is part of the deal. Ask any 2-year-old that's teething. It's part of the deal. Ask any 2-year-old that just took a fall or just placed their hand on that hot stove. Ask any 2-year-old if it's a painful thing. And then ask anybody who's been activated and coming in to a Kundalini awakening expression, ask a heavenly child if it's so easy and it's so enjoyable and it's so simple? As we walk this Kundalini pilgrimage, there is one big aspect to this pilgrimage that is constantly confusing us, constantly leading us astray, making us take a much longer route than we would otherwise normally take. And this is the ego. The ego, which expects to be respected, which has expectation of being appreciated, which has expectation of feeling good, having fun, chasing pleasure, receiving pleasure, having a positive self-image, whether or not that has been earned through noble qualities. Being in competition with others, being in competition with self, comparing itself to others and comparing itself to what it feels is the idyllic self-aggrandizement. This is what is constantly slowing us down on this pilgrimage, dragging its feet behind us, this giant ego wrapped around us with chains to our heart and our head and our body and our mind. We slowly pull this giant slumbering child with us. And when it says, I want that candy bar, well, you're stopping and you're looking at those candy bars. If it says, I want this self-aggrandizement, this self-adoration, well, then you're taking the time to feed that child that adoration and that aggrandizement. You're taking the time to do this, which is taking the time away from your pilgrimage, away from that tiny spark of light that is drawing you further and further and further afield. And slowly but surely, you're being taught not to give the ego everything she wants, not to give the ego everything he wants. But you begin to discipline that ego. You begin to discipline that ego. And as you discipline that ego, you find things begin to go a little smoother on this pilgrimage. Remember, we're beginning to discipline the ego, and things start to go a little bit smoother. And as things go smoother, more information comes your way. And as more information comes your way, more opportunities for authentic, truthful, Kundalini-based information comes your way. And you might be given to a teacher. But it's not easy to find that teacher. You have to climb a long, long ways to reach a teacher. The teachers don't typically live in the deserts. They live in the mountains. They live high, high, high up a seemingly impassable mountain range that you must somehow pass through. But you're going to have a hard time finding that teacher if you're still lugging that heavy ego behind you. And when you find that teacher, if you find that teacher, you must remember how hard it was to find him or her. You must remember how hard it was during all of those fragmentations to find that teacher, that man, that woman, living up there on that mountain peak. How hard it was to climb that mountain, to reach that peak. And you must begin to lighten your load. And the one thing that you really can do to lighten that load is to stop feeding the ego. Stop letting that ego have its temper tantrum. Stop allowing the ego to control how you do, what you do, why you do, where you do it, or how you do it. Lightening this load is also part of that Kundalini pilgrimage. Meeting that teacher is part of your Kundalini pilgrimage. Another aspect of the ego that you really want to begin to curtail are your expectations of what is right and what is wrong, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate. Your Kundalini knows you better than you know yourself, and it is the one that has guided you to a specific teacher. So inside of this part of the pilgrimage, you must really increase your trust. Not the trust of the ego, not the trust of your expectations, not the trust of your Western social environmental programming. Not that trust. But the trust of your surrender. Your surrender to the Kundalini within you and to the Kundalini within that teacher. And you will be given every opportunity to resist. Every opportunity to resist, you will be given. This is not for the faint of heart, ladies and gentlemen. Just climbing these mountains just to meet that teacher is not for the faint of heart. Just going through all of those fragmentations and all of those issues and all of those scenarios, that is not for the faint of heart. And yes, you are guided, and yes, you are nurtured. But still, you must do the hard work. You must do the hard work. And as you do this hard work, you are rewarded. But you're not rewarded and then, pat on the back. You still must do the work. You still must do the work. And now the work is with a teacher in the flesh. And the teacher in the flesh is going to put you through a whole new level of teaching. You will have to figure. You will have to change. You will have to discern. You will have to comprehend. You will have to practice. You will have to have discipline. You'll have to do all the things that maybe you hadn't had to do before. And the worst part of it is you'll have to trust another living person with the guidance of your life. Not the easiest thing to do, ladies and gentlemen who have not been there yet. For those of you that have not walked this path yet, this part of the pilgrimage, this can be fairly difficult. Fairly difficult. And then as you receive the teachings from this teacher, by the time you leave this teacher, your ego should be very, very, very strongly in its own level of discipline. And it should be very much controlled by the Kundalini consciousness within you. No longer is it lunging for the candy bar. No longer is it lunging for that which it thinks is appropriate or having a treatment the way it thinks it should be treated or any of the egoic attitudes and expectations that it came into the presence of the teacher with. Those are gone now. The ego is on a very, very, very long and strong level of fasting. No longer does it get to consume that which it has always consumed. No longer does it have the self-gratification that it's come to expect and enjoy. But now it's also evolving. Now that big giant that you had to haul up those mountains, now he's slimming down. Now it's becoming someone that is walking with you into evolution rather than pulling you back away from it. Now it's part of the pilgrimage rather than an impediment to the pilgrimage. And as you gain more and more and more ego discipline from your interaction with the teacher, and as you move beyond that teacher, the light that has been pulling you along is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. This is that Kundalini pilgrimage. And it won't be the same way for all of you. Some of you will never meet a teacher. Some of you will. Some of you will meet a teacher and then throw them away because your ego didn't like them. Some of you will meet a teacher and embrace that teacher and those teachings, no matter how they come, will gain. What matters is how you discipline your ego at this stage. Let the ego evolve. Let that inner child evolve. Let it grow up. It's in your hands, my friend. As you partake of this pilgrimage, you partake of the opportunities to have discipline in what you're doing and how you're doing it and why. Train that ego. Don't let them have their tantrums. You must control the tantrum. Even if everybody around you is having a tantrum, even if that teacher is having a tantrum, and they do, I promise you they do. You don't get to, because it's a test for you. It's a test. Everything is a test. Everything. Now I'm going to bring my co-host on. My co-host is Amelia Santara, and she is a prolific writer on the KAS groups, including Kundalini Awakening exclamation point, Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 and 2 and 3, Kundalini People, Kundalini Healing, and I'd like to welcome her to the program. Hello, Santara. How are you?
Hello, Chrism. I'm very good. Thank you very much. Hi to everybody in the chat room and to those that are listening on the phone as well.
How do you feel about your Kundalini pilgrimage, Santara?
I've been listening, Chrism. Wow, it just amazes me, the topic of the conversation today. I don't feel like speaking much about it, Chrism. I think what you have said has been so amazing, so true. You speak about, I just don't know, Chrism. You've got this incredible way of being, that the Kundalini comes through, and such a macro perspective. I don't really want to say anything, if I may. Just be quiet, if that's okay.
All right, no, it's perfectly all right. I'll put you in the blue here. And I'm going to come over to another wonderful, wonderful Kundalini representative on this planet. Her name is Rosemary Goliath. And she has held numerous Kundalini Awakening seminars in the Minnesota, Twin Cities area of central United States. And I'm going to come over here and ask her about her Kundalini pilgrimage and how she feels about how that is going. How are you, Rosemary? Hello.
Hello. I am sitting here listening to you and saying all that, and I say, oh my goodness. and I could see that it has to be that way. I think even for Teresa of Avila, it was a struggle. I mean, the people that we know, and it is. And I've thought about that a little bit recently, too, because everything else before this just arose from another perspective, from a different set of values, and so they all have to get discarded, and they're the inner fiber to that point of my life. And it's hard. It's lonesome. I feel that right now. I'm sure this all is up and down and it changes, but that's what I think now. How in some ways I miss the old things that I did. I miss the people, and yet it's not something that you start and then you walk away, because at the same time, it's really what I'm here for on this earth, is to live this life. And I welcome how there have been seminars here, because I welcome the opportunity to share this with other people, because there aren't too many voices out there, Chrism. So I thank you for your voice.
Mm-hmm. And really, you can't really. I can't really take any gratitude for any of these words. This is the Kundalini that takes the gratitude for this. You give your gratitude to your Kundalini. That's the one who you thank. Yeah. That's the one that allowed you to recognize those words in that magazine you were reading that led you to the Kundalini in 2011, I guess. Was it 11?
11, yes. I know that. I do. I mean, when I look back, it was nothing that. It wasn't anything in my normal thinking that brought me. It was just I was carried.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And as it carried you, you begin to embrace that carriage. And as it carried you, you begin to open yourself to what it was telling you to do and how to do what to do, and how amazingly against society that could be. You understand?
Yes, and also the short range, the close society. That are one's basic relationships that have been all my life.
With the family and with friends.
Yep.
Everything changes. Thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you.
If you have any questions about your Kundalini awakening experience, I invite you to call in or to write in the chat group, and the number is 347-934-0026. So once again, that number is 347-934-0026. And I'm going to open the questions earlier today, Amelia. So if you have had the time to collect any questions, let's go ahead and begin.
Yes, I have indeed, Chrism. Interestingly, I didn't receive any into my inbox, which is unusual, and I have very few from the group this week, so it's going to be shorter than usual. So these are from the group, Chrism. Do dinosaurs represent the Shakti? A lady had a dream about dinosaurs chasing her and other people, and nothing to do with
they
movies.
can. They can represent the Kundalini, indeed. So can alligators or crocodiles. Sometimes people will have dreams of flying crocodiles or flying alligators, and they can also represent Kundalini Shakti. You got to understand that Shakti can come to you basically in any form she wants. Some people get these really amazing spiders. Some people get these giant serpents. Sometimes your bedroom, when you're in the between state of awake and asleep, you see your room is filled with different sizes and species of snakes. And if you do the ayahuasca, last time. Not the last time, but when I was in Peru and did it with Alonzo's, the giant anaconda comes up, and you literally are kind of pulled into the through the cranium of the giant anaconda. And so, yes, any reptilian type of species, and snakes and arachnids, and wolves, killer whales, wasps, bees, bears, lions, panthers, jaguars. All of these represent top of the predator pyramid creatures, and these are the creatures that the Kundalini will begin to inhabit and will begin to present to you, within the dream state or the hypnosis. So, over.
Thank you, Chrism. Actually, for me, during my awakening event, I was given the iguana, which is like a little mini dinosaur, is it not?
It is, yeah.
So, yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay, so the next question is, any insights on this waking vision? A snake rises up my spine to leave my body above my head. There it is met by an eagle that picks it up with its beak and kills it. And I think the person is mystified by the eagle killing the snake, Chrism. There is more.
Well, the question is hi, I'm being visited by my little ginormous German Shepherd here. Honey, go sit down.
Oh.
Thank you, dear. Yes, lick. I see. Okay. So what is happening is the eagle, why would in a predator-prey environment, the eagle would kill the snake and then it would consume the snake. And that eagle and that snake would become one. Okay. Same thing here. The eagle comes and takes the snake out of the top of the head and consumes it. In a way, that can be seen as a marriage. That can be understood as a marriage. It's like the Native Americans, whenever they would, and not all of them, but I think most of them, would thank whatever prey, let's just say it was a deer, they would thank the deer. Wow, something just popped on. There we go. They would thank the deer for joining them in their life, for giving them the life and joining them in their life. And so in a way, that joining can be seen as a marriage, and that marriage is a unity of the two creatures. And so the snake and the eagle become one. That's a positive dream. But once again, as per the Kundalini Pilgrimage, it goes outside of what the expectations are. It doesn't fulfill your expectations. It's just like, oh, that's Shakti is the snake, and oh, that's Shiva as the eagle. And oh, how come they're not just getting married and walking down the aisle with rose petals? No, it's not going to be shown to you always that way. Sometimes it will indeed be shown to you that way, but not always. And so once again, we are lightening the egoic load by letting go of our expectations of how it should be and allowing the divine to develop within us an appreciation of how the divine wants to demonstrate it to us. It's an expansion of your consciousness. It's an expansion out of the narrow vision of the egoic controlled mind or the expected mind. It's an expansion of consciousness. And when your consciousness is in an expanding state, options present to you. Options present to you. And those options will not always be in alignment with what the general public thinks Shakti and Shiva should be doing. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. How do I know if a spinal sweep is on its way? Can it take years with the Kundalini active before this happens, and does it always happen? Thank you.
It can take years. It can take many, many years. The activation can also take many years. How will you know? Well, the first thing is you know whether or not you're on the Kundalini pilgrimage. You know. Okay. The second thing is you're looking at how you're walking that pilgrimage. What are you doing to follow that little glimmer of a light, that Kundalini light, that divine light that is beckoning you forward? How are you following that? How is it pulling you forward? And are you resisting that pull? And so you can make your own discernment about an impending spinal sweep based upon how well or how committed you are to walking this pilgrimage. And if you are committed to walking the pilgrimage, well, that pilgrimage will bring you the spinal sweep, the divine union with the flesh. That will bring it to you. So that's a level of self-discernment. Now, when the spinal sweep occurs, you have no doubt. There is no doubt that you have a spinal sweep. No doubt at all. No doubt at all. But it's coming into that where the frequencies begin to really, really increase. Really increase. In just a second, I let these girls out. Come on, girls. They get so bored of hearing me speak. One's just coming up and going, "Oh, please let me out of this." So yeah, when the frequencies begin to compact themselves upon you, you feel that the spinal sweep is about to occur. Most people will not know that a spinal sweep is coming. Those people that do know that a spinal sweep can come will kind of develop an expectation of that to occur. Sometimes that can help and sometimes that can hurt. It depends on the individual and how much they're surrendering into the instruction of the Kundalini. Over.
Okay, thanks, Chrism. That's the end of the specific questions, but I would like to ask you, if I may, about suicide. Often it's said, I think, that a person who has taken their own life is not suffering any longer and that they're at peace. And, it's a hard one for me because people like the consolation of, saying that their loved ones are at peace. And I've had that experience when a neighbour committed suicide, and my daughter's friend and my friend's son. And yet I have a feeling that might not be true, that the person...
No, it's not true.
Has actually increased difficulties rather than...
It's
Can
not
you
true.
speak about that, if you would?
It's not true. It's not true. The suicide does not gain peace. It's like Yogananda said, outside of the body, we are kind of within the same consciousness that we are inside of the body. If we're a good person outside of the body, then and we're a good person in the body, then we're a good person outside of the body. If we're a bad person in the body, then we're a bad person outside the body. If we're having traumatic details given to us within our life and we commit suicide, well, those traumatic details don't just magically go away because you killed the flesh body. Now it's harder in the way that you have a much harder way of finding your way through these issues without a body that kind of require a body to be resolved with. Requires a 5-sense understanding of life. It requires, the specific reality that a person who commits suicide had before they committed suicide. Now that they're suicided, it's not like they have that body anymore to work through the issues. And so it is, it is a more challenging environment, to be sure. And that's without making any kind of judgment on whether suicide is good or suicide is bad. It's just a more challenging environment to try to solve your own problem. Over.
I have an extension question, please, Chrism. By giving love towards that person and offer, giving forgiveness, does that help the person? Or is that my Catholic upbringing?
Well, yeah,
I feel it does, but
there's probably a bit of that. I think sending well wishes and compassionate wishes and prayers to the individual, I think is helpful, and not just a one-time shot. Say, oh, see ya, but on a consistent, continual level, to send them love and help and healing, and they're also getting some help and healing within that environment. There is divine nurturance for those who commit suicide, to be sure. Just like there is for the living, there is also divine guidance and nurturing for those who have committed suicide.
Okay, Chrism. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, that's the end of the questions for today.
All right, very good. I think this will probably be an hour show today. Now I see somebody is typing in the chat room, so I'm going to go ahead and let them type. We have no seminars on the docket, so there's nothing there to advertise. I can explain that I have been informed by my Shakti Kundalini that I have to charge for some things now, and it's not something I've been very willing to do. For the past 10 years, I have not charged for a Shakti pot, and now I'm being asked to charge for a Shakti pot. And I'll go ahead and read to you what that is all about. And let's see here if I can find it. And yeah, let's see here. Scrolling down a little bit. Well, let me try another spotter. I've got so many writings here that it's hard. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is it. And this is my surrender to the Kundalini within me. She says, I've been told by my Kundalini in numerous ways and from numerous sources of her communications with me that I must change more than she has asked of me before. One of these changes is with the Shakti pot that she gives through me. She will no longer allow it to be free of charge. For 10 years, it has been free. But now she wants those who wish to have it to be required to give of a value for it. She realizes that for many, if it is not valuable, then it isn't worth lifting a finger to work for it. And so this change is in response to our statutory laziness when it comes to being given something of great value. So she is commanding a price for her gift. She, Shakti, sacred feminine, Kundalini, will no longer be free. Just as one must dedicate their life to this process, so must one now dedicate their material wealth to it as well. And yes, this does not go against the previous exhortations of divinity not being for sale. It still is not. Your entrance into it, vis-a-vis the Shakti pot, your golden ticket, will now require more effort and more importance from you. So I want this to be understood. Now, iMagic Art has a question. He says, I was wondering about the difference between a top-down activation versus a bottom-up activation in regards to a spinal sweep. Do both type of activations lead to a spinal sweep? Top-down and bottom-up are referring to spinal sweeps. Activations, top-down activations versus bottom-to-up activations. These activations basically are the preparatory agent for a spinal sweep to occur. Okay, so you're applying a condition to activation that really is only to be applied to spinal sweeps. Top-down typically is harder because you're going from refinement into density. Bottom to top allows for a level of refinement to be built upon. Either way, it can be a very, very difficult scenario depending on your karma and depending on how well you're listening to your Kundalini and how well you're bringing your ego into control. But typically a top-down, that can come from, say, psilocybin ingestion, magic mushrooms, otherwise known as magic mushrooms. That can really, really, really blow apart the seventh chakra. And wow, that can be very, very difficult. Very difficult for a person. And often it takes years and years and years of heavy drugs to just be able to operate in society. Bottom to top, in my experience with teaching others and having it myself, is by far the preferable way to go. Within the activation sequence, if you're focusing more on the top chakras than the bottom chakras, well, then you may be setting yourself up for a spinal sweep that goes down instead of one that goes up. Okay, so greater balance needs to be given. I would suggest that you leave the seventh chakra alone, and you can work from 6 down to 1, or 1 up to 6. But the seventh chakra, you let the divine deal with the seventh chakra, except for certain kinds of cetacean breathing or spinal breathing. That end point on the exhalation and that starting point on the inhalation will often be through the fontanelle, which of course is the center of the crown jewel. So I hope that helps, iMagic Art. And no more questions, Santara?
No, Chrism, that's it for this week.
All right.
Definitely a shorter show. So, yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, thank you for everything, Chrism, for what the Kundalini has given through you for all of us to hear today and to receive. And can I just say that for me, and I think maybe for listeners, I'm going to suggest that, well, for me, this was a show with really compressed teachings, sort of compressed information. And I'm going to suggest that if you listen again to this show more than once, even 2 or 3 times, that you might find each time you listen, you will hear new information for the first time. I think it has been one of those shows, Chrism. So thank you.
Agreed.
Thank your Kundalini. I'm thanking your Kundalini indeed.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody in the chat room, for listening. And I agree with Santara. This might be one to listen to again and again and again. And it's not so much that you're listening to my voice. It's that you're listening to the communication of your Kundalini to you vis-a-vis the Kundalini within me. That's what you're listening to, and that's what's providing the new information every time you listen to it. And Santara, I'd like you to title this program Kundalini Pilgrimage, if you would, please.
I will do. Thanks, Chrism.
And everybody, I would like to thank you for listening. For those of you that are listening in the archives, the future people, I'd like to thank you for listening and encourage you to listen to this over and over again. And feel free to share this program with people that you think it might serve. And as usual, I will end this program the way it was begun.